Semigration is a hot topic at the moment. But what is the data telling us? Well, to unpack this question, we are joined by the head of digital at Lightstone, Hayley Ivins-Downes. Hayley's core focus is creating a customer-centric digital experience. Starting out her career as a business analyst at Standard Bank, Hayley transitioned into the sales-focused role of account executive at the Knowledge Factory, before joining Nedbank as the head of channel infrastructure. After amassing 13 years of property market knowledge, Hayley joined Lightstone Property to lead the sales team there. Recently appointed as head of digital, Hayley's focus is on building and growing Lightstone as a marketplace for real estate. Welcome, Hayley. Over to you.
Thank you, Voyo. And now on to the interesting topic of semigration. We just want to get into the understanding of what's happening in the market, and ever since the COVID from last year, and has that changed our semigration patterns in the country? Firstly, a definition around semigration. So we classify semigration as somebody that is selling a property and buying another property in a separate province. So let's just understand what that looks like, and I'll take you through some of the views of that. Some questions to consider as we go through this and some of the research that we've done. Have semigration patterns changed due to COVID last year? Where are people moving from? Where are they moving to? Who is moving and why are they moving? Firstly, to get a view of your total stock that's happening in the country. So essentially, this is all your registered properties that we have. 6.8 million in terms of volume and 6.1 trillion in terms of value. So when we look at how that is across the country and how it is spread, we can see that it is principally in Gauteng and Western Cape. So those are the two big pockets of property that we're seeing in the country. Then when we get into a little bit more detail in terms of where the value of the stock is actually sitting, if we look at the graph on the right, you can see definitely still your Gauteng and Western Cape that are featuring the most in terms of where the value of the stock is. Interesting part around the left graph is showing where it's actually sitting in the value bands. And an interesting part there is that it's sitting primarily in the sections of under 500,000 for a property. So that is the biggest volume and value of stock that we have in South Africa. Looking ahead in terms of kind of transfers and what that looks like from 2008 to what we're currently experiencing. Also very interesting to note the difference in terms of the different bands that we're seeing where the transactions are actually happening. So you'll see in 2008, transactions were definitely happening more in the 500,000 band and kind of moved along those lines, getting more up to where we are now in 2021, which is where the churn is now more in your band of 1 million to 3 million. Definitely a change in terms of where transfers are happening, a different segment. There's a couple of factors that we could look at for that, and that's obviously linked to your socio-economic as well as the political factors and the change in terms of happening, but really a good indicator that people are definitely buying within the 1 to 3 million. So there's a need in that property market. Interesting to note where the affordable market is going to be going, but we are foreseeing that that would increase. House price inflation. Also very interesting to note. So last year through COVID, we were really uncertain around how price inflation was going to be impacted. However, as you can see by the graphs, there was the major dip happened in the luxury market, which is our property prices over 3 million. You'll see there's a slight dip there. In actual fact, it got to a negative 3%. That was the only negative inflation that we saw during the time. Since COVID, we have seen an uptick in the property market, which has been phenomenal and really great for the industry. And you can actually see in terms of the inflation, the growth that we are anticipating across each of the bands, the value bands that we are seeing, and the uptick on all of them. So back to semigration. Where are people moving away from? If we look at the numbers in the bar graph, you'll see definitely Gauteng. Gauteng is the big yellow bands that you're seeing across over the different years. The spread, however, is not a huge differential. We're obviously up to the 42% now in terms of people that are leaving Gauteng, that we're seeing in terms of semigrating. So obviously that is, once again, people that are selling properties in Gauteng and moving to another province. You'll see that through the years, this is a general trend, people generally moving out of Gauteng. And then the next question is, where are they going to? And the section at the top, the elements in black, are your Western Cape. And you can see that's obviously where the majority of people are moving to. Interesting also to note, from last year to this year, the jump and the increase from 31% to 35%. So there's been a slight increase moving to Western Cape, but that is not a phenomenal change. We saw a bit of a change in 2016 where there was 36%, 2017, 36%, also around the same region. So it moves in phases in terms of when people are moving. So semigration is happening all the time. And what we're seeing is certain factors come in and accelerate the process. Are lifestyle changes driving semigration? So if we look at sizes of towns, where are people moving from and where are they moving to? So the big component that you take away from the two graphs immediately is the towns moving from. You can see the metropolis, the big piece there. They are moving out of the metropolises and into your small and large towns, which you can see underneath the slat, the grey at the top and then the blue at the bottom. So that is the definite takeout that we are seeing. People are moving to smaller towns. Is safety a factor? So when we look at the data, and we'll see on the left, you can see property type moving from and property type moving to. The big increase there is in estates. So people are moving to estates for a number of reasons, one of them being safety. But if we look at the sectional title numbers, you can see that there's actually been a little bit of a drop. So in that, it's definitely more of a lifestyle that people are wanting when they're moving to an estate, but obviously safety is always a factor. Then when we start getting down into more the town level within the provinces, so the big takeout for Gauteng is that obviously the majority of people are leaving. So if you look at Pretoria, you'll see the number at the top, 627. And if we go kind of how many people are moving back in, it's quite a big drop. So there is a gap in terms of that. There's a deficit. People are moving out of Gauteng. In KwaZulu-Natal, a very similar story, and it actually supports our metropolis to your small town, large town. For instance, if you're looking at your Salt Rock and your Ballito, you can see the numbers there, the number of people that are leaving those areas, as opposed to coming into those areas. The numbers now increasing. So once again, there's a greater need in the smaller towns, larger towns, and the metropolises are feeling the gap. Western Cape is where the differential hits. Western Cape is a positive all round. So the number of people that are semigrating out of Western Cape is lower than the number of people moving into Western Cape. And that you can just see literally by the numbers. Then focusing on something else around age of buyers. So 46 to 64 years is the trend at the moment. Majority of people that are semigrating are in that age group. And you can then kind of see where they're moving out of. Once again, Gauteng is featuring as the biggest piece in terms of where people are moving away from. If we look at where age of buyers moving in, the same stat is applicable. So you're 46 to 64 years, and they are moving to Western Cape. That is the biggest piece coming through. Second to that is the age group 36 to 49. Are people upgrading or downgrading? Very important question. So are they paying more for where they're moving to? Are they paying less? So more people are still upgrading than downgrading, but the ratio is significantly less than in 2015. And we'll get into some more of that detail per area. So if we look at Gauteng, for instance, you can see basically people that are moving to Gauteng from Western Cape are basically upgrading. You can see that number at the top. So, and the downgrading's at the bottom. So very interesting pieces of information. Western Cape, what we find with the Western Cape, so people moving to the Western Cape, there's definitely a view around downgrading in sense of the property value, but essentially getting a very similar property. So what we find in the Western Cape is the value of properties in Western Cape is higher than across the country. So a property that you'll find in Gauteng for 3 million looks very different in the Western Cape in the sense that it'll be smaller. So you'll be getting something smaller for your 3 million in Western Cape than what you will for your Gauteng. KZN, very similar picture. And in actual fact, KZN, the interesting component there is people moving from Western Cape to KZN are spending more but getting a smaller property. So this will be linking very much into your apartment style, in your mshlangers, all of those areas. And in conclusion, just some significant takeouts that we're seeing. So more people are leaving Gauteng than seen in previous years. We're seeing more movement to and from the smaller towns like Margate, Mossel Bay, Milnerton, Jeffreys Bay, which is actually really great for those towns. The state of the economy is having its impact and can be seen in the number of downgrades versus upgrades. And estate living is the preferred option and is no doubt a trend that will continue. And the big factor as well just to consider is the fact that there's now more working from home than was before and previously. We did see a bit of the move starting before COVID, but what we found is the acceleration of COVID has just made it more prominent that people can actually live anywhere and do the work that they're currently doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayley. It's exceptionally valuable to be able to look at things from a data point of view and to get perspective on the numbers and what they mean. I do have some questions, if that's okay with you.
That'll be great. Thanks.
Hey. Now, there's a lot happening in property at the moment. With low interest rates, house price, inflation, and on an upward, and people are definitely on the move. Where do you think the opportunities are in real estate at the moment?
So there's a couple of factors at the moment. With the low interest rates, it's really an awesome time to be buying a property. And then if we look at what's actually happening is the market is buoyant, which means it's a seller's and a buyer's market. There's a lot of activity happening. For the estate agent, it's a really good time to be in the industry. We're seeing a lot of sales coming through. And not only that, it's not just focused in the metropolis areas, it's also focused now on the smaller and larger towns. So the opportunities is really great across the board.
We're seeing an increase, albeit a slight one, in the number of buyers under the age 35 bracket, which is promising, I mean, for the market, isn't it?
Yes, definitely very promising. So this is where we're really wanting to see the market moving. The traditional age has been over the 35 age that we're seeing people that are buying property. It's almost when they reach a certain level that they can afford it. But with the younger ages coming in, it means that affordability is more available now. And there are properties that can be purchased. And especially for somebody in that age group, to be thinking around an investment for your own property, as well as possibly rental or future investments. So it's definitely a good thing that we are seeing.
Thank you again for your time, Hayley, and for your contribution.